I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, explosive new allegations of a military cover-up in the Pat Tillman case. An Army Ranger says he was barred from telling Tillman's brother he was killed by friendly fire.
I was ordered not to tell him what happened, sir.
You were ordered not.
Also tonight, 9 U.S. paratroopers are killed in Iraq. While in Washington, a war of words between Republicans and Democrats. Words like defeatism and attack dog. Fears that hogs that were fed contaminated pet food may have gotten into the human food supply. And wag the dog. A new study says your dog's tail can tell you what he's really thinking.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. Did the U.S. military try to rewrite history? That was the allegation on Capitol Hill today as Congress heard dramatic testimony about the friendly fire death of Pat Tillman, the Army Ranger and former football star killed in Afghanistan. A fellow Ranger said he heard Tillman pleading for his life as he was mistakenly shot by American soldiers. Then the Ranger says he was ordered to keep quiet about it. Why would the military do that? Tillman's brother claims it was all about telling a better story. We have two reports tonight, beginning with David Martin.
Speaking publicly for the first time, Pat Tillman's brother told Congress false reports the former NFL star was killed by enemy fire were concocted by the military to create a hero.
These are deliberate and calculated lies.
Kevin Tillman, a member of the same Ranger platoon that went through this narrow Afghan canyon on the day Pat Tillman was killed, heaped scorn on the medal posthumously awarded to his brother.
To further exploit Pat's death, he was awarded the Silver Star for valor. There was one small problem with the narrative, however. It was utter fiction. We believe this narrative was intended to deceive the family, but more importantly, to deceive the American public.
Specialist Brian O'Neill was with Tillman and knew at once the incoming fire was coming from their own men.
I could hear Pat calling, stop shooting, Pat effing Tillman, stop shooting, over and over and over again.
Yet he was ordered by an officer not to tell how Tillman died.
I wanted right off the bat to let the family know what had happened, especially Kevin, because I worked with him in the platoon, and I was quite appalled. I was ordered not to tell him what happened, sir.
You were ordered not to tell them?
Roger that, sir.
It was kept secret from the family, but not from senior Army officers.
Within 72 hours, at least 9 military officials knew or were informed that Pat Tillman's death was a fratricide, including at least 3 generals.
Former Private Jessica Lynch, who became an instant hero of the Iraq War after her capture and subsequent rescue,
You're doing great, Jessica. You're doing wonderful.
said her ordeal was hyped by inaccurate news reports.
All repeating the story of the little girl Rambo from the hills of West Virginia who went down fighting. It was not true.
Lynch, who never got off a single shot, said there's no need to make up war stories.
The truth of war is not always easy. The truth is always more heroic than the hype.
Pat Tillman's mother said it's misleading to put a glorious face on war.
It's ugly, it's bloody, it's painful, and to write these glorious tales is really a disservice to the nation. 4
generals now face possible disciplinary action for their role in perpetuating false accounts of Tillman's death. But Mary Tillman believes they're just scapegoats who were acting on orders from higher up, possibly even the White House. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
I'm Jim Axelrod at the White House, where it's unclear who knew what about Pat Tillman's death.
It's a bit disingenuous to think that the administration did not know about what was going on, something so politically sensitive.
Pat Tillman was killed on April 22, 2004. 6 days later, a White House speechwriter contacted the Pentagon for information about Tillman. The next day, the commander of operations in Afghanistan, General Stanley McChrystal, sent a memo to 3 top generals. McChrystal wanted them to know it's highly possible Tillman was killed by friendly fire. Since the president might include comments about Tillman's heroism in speeches, not knowing the specifics surrounding his death, McChrystal hoped to preclude any unknowing statements which might cause embarrassment if the circumstances of Corporal Tillman's death become public. 2 days later, May 1st, when the president publicly praised the nation's highest profile casualty in the war on terror, he made no mention of how he died.
The loss of Army Corporal Pat Tillman last week in Afghanistan brought home the sorrow that comes with every loss and reminds us of the character of the men and women who serve on our behalf.
On May 3rd, at a memorial honoring Tillman's bravery fighting the enemy, a general attending knew that was likely untrue. But Tillman's family wouldn't find out for another 26 days. An internal Pentagon probe determined Donald Rumsfeld didn't know how Tillman died either. But Pat Tillman's mom isn't buying.
The fact that he would be killed by friendly fire and no one would tell Rumsfeld is ludicrous, because he would have had a fit.
The White House insists the president found out how Pat Tillman died only after the family was told. He learned it was friendly fire, aides say, from news reports. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, the White House.
Now to the battle in Washington over the war in Iraq. Vice President Cheney and the top Democrat in the Senate, Harry Reid, exchanged some very harsh words today. From Capitol Hill, here's Cheryl Atkinson.
The vice president was so ticked off at Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid.
His comments were uninformed and misleading.
He did something he almost never does. He stopped to talk to reporters after his weekly meeting with Senate Republicans.
It is cynical to declare that the war is lost because you believe it gives you political advantage.
Cheney went after Reid for declaring the war in Iraq lost last week and for attaching conditions to funding the troops. Then he practically called Reid a flip-flopper.
Senator Reid has gone from pledging full funding for the military, then full funding but with conditions, and then a cutoff of funding.
Minutes later, the normally mild-mannered Reid fired back.
I'm not going to get into a name-calling match with somebody who has a 9% approval rating.
Here's what's behind the timing of the war of words. Congress is about to pass a bill that funds the war, but orders the troops to withdraw in bold defiance of President Bush. He's promised to sling it right back at them with a veto. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Inside Iraq today, a group with links to al-Qaeda claimed responsibility for yesterday's attack that killed 9 American soldiers, all paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division. Their deaths bring the U.S. toll for the war to 3,333. The paratroopers were killed in Diyala province, northeast of Baghdad, when 2 suicide bombers blew up a dump trucks at a patrol base. The attack underscores the new dangers American soldiers face in that part of Iraq. From Baghdad, here's Mark Strassman.
In 2 vehicles, suicide bombers came at a company of soldiers with the 82nd Airborne and the abandoned school they had fortified into their combat outpost. Under heavy fire from U.S. troops, the first suicide bomber crashed into a concrete wall near the school's entrance. That explosion created a hole, and then a truck bomber raced toward the school and exploded. Some soldiers outside were killed by the mid-afternoon blast. Others were killed inside when a wall collapsed on top of them. Hours later on their website, Sunni extremists linked to al-Qaeda claimed responsibility. In recent weeks, soldiers with the North Carolina-based 82nd Airborne have battled insurgents in Diyala province, and the cost has been heavy. By one count, 56 U.S. soldiers have been killed in Diyala since November. By taking the fight to the insurgents outside Baghdad, military experts believe American soldiers are often more vulnerable to these sorts of attacks.
It involves a certain amount of risk, obviously, because you have less protection, but at the same time, the idea is you put these soldiers at risk to accomplish the mission.
And with the U.S. security surge still building in Baghdad, many insurgents have scattered. So in coming weeks, these insurgent attacks are also likely to surge outside the capital city. Major General Benjamin Mixon commands all U.S. troops in Diyala and across northern Iraq.
We have killed more of the enemy, captured more of the enemy, and we have them under pressure, and that's the reason we're seeing these mindless suicide-type events.
This was one of the deadliest attacks against U.S. troops since the war began. Tonight, U.S. commanders are reviewing the way they try to protect soldiers in these command outposts. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Baghdad.
Here at home, as we reported last night, Congress is getting serious about investigating the safety of our food supply. Families victimized by tainted spinach and peanut butter testified today, among them Michael and Elizabeth Armstrong. Their daughters, 2-year-old Ashley and 5-year-old Isabella, got very sick last fall after eating spinach contaminated with E. coli bacteria. Mr. Armstrong said, "I can't protect them from spinach. Only you guys can." Meanwhile, there is late-breaking news tonight. The FDA is dramatically expanding its investigation into a dangerous chemical that's turned up in pet food and now feed for livestock. And the agency is testing to see if any of it has gotten into the food that we eat. More now from Nancy Cordes.
The 6 imported ingredients the FDA plans to test are proteins found in countless foods Americans eat every day, from pasta and cereal to cheese and salad dressing. FDA officials say they have no evidence those foods are contaminated, but after the chemical melamine turned up in 2 vegetable proteins imported from China for use in pet food, inspectors became concerned that proteins used in human food could be at risk too. Over the next 2 weeks, inspectors will begin testing imported cornmeal, soy protein, rice bran, wheat gluten, corn gluten, and rice protein concentrate, all used to keep foods intact and give them texture. Inspectors will sample both raw ingredients and finished foods. The FDA also confirmed today the discovery of a second unauthorized chemical, cyanuric acid, in rice protein concentrate destined for 5 U.S. pet food makers. Like melamine, the acid can make a product appear to have more protein than it does, adding fuel to the FDA's theory that the contamination was deliberate. The nation's meat supply is involved too. Thousands of hogs in 6 states are now under quarantine after being fed leftover pet food no one knew was contaminated. Hogs in 3 of the states have tested positive for melamine. The FDA says it's unclear whether any contaminated pork was consumed by humans. But it says more inspections are necessary. Inspectors say they hope to be able to inspect those Chinese plants soon, but the testing they plan to do in this country could be a massive undertaking, including products from all over the world. Those suspects' ingredients are found in hundreds, if not thousands, of products, Katie.
All right, Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you very much. In news now about the economy, the housing slump is continuing. America's realtors said today sales of used homes in March took their biggest drop in nearly 2 decades, and home prices in February had their sharpest decline in close to 15 years. General Motors glanced in its rearview mirror and didn't see Toyota anymore. Figures out today show Toyota passed GM in the first quarter of the year to become the top-selling car dealer in the world. There is much more CBS News ahead when we return, closing the loophole that allowed the Virginia Tech killer to buy his guns. Inmates at the state prison in Newcastle, Indiana, started a riot today. They set fires in a courtyard and tried to knock down fences. 2 staff members were hurt. The medium security prison is run by a private company and recently took in prisoners from Arizona. And the riot may have been sparked by a rivalry between the new prisoners and the old. Police got things under control after about 2 hours. The head of a new commission studying the massacre at Virginia Tech said today it's clear Sung-Wee Cho should not have been able to buy the guns he used to kill 32 students and teachers. Loopholes in the law allowed Cho to sail through the background check. That state commission will issue its report in 3 months, but Virginia's governor said today he won't wait before taking action. Here's Wyatt Andrews.
Sung-Wee Cho fell through a lot of cracks on his way to infamy, but perhaps the biggest was the way Joe, a mental patient, was allowed to buy his guns. Virginia Governor Tim Kaine says he wants that loophole closed now.
We don't feel a need to wait.
Here's the issue. According to the 1968 Federal Gun Control Act, no one can buy a gun who's been adjudicated as a mental defective or committed to any mental institution. In December of 2005, a Virginia justice directed Cho to undergo court-ordered outpatient treatments, which was not a commitment to an institution. And so Cho's name was never sent to the federal database used for gun purchase background checks. The governor now wants the state to report all patients ordered into therapy.
I think once there's an adjudication that they're mentally ill and they pose a danger to themselves or others, that is the kind of information that should be shared, we believe, with the national database.
The mental health system itself also seems to have failed. Despite that order for Cho to get therapy, it's not clear he ever went or whether the clinic, the new River Valley Community Services, ever followed up. The clinic says it is not an enforcement agency, but critics say that's wrong.
There is a profound misunderstanding of that law.
According to treatment advocate Mary Zdanowicz, the clinic was under court order to either treat Cho or report him for not showing up.
They were required to monitor him, and there is a provision in the law that would allow a court to rescind it and hospitalize him if he was not participating in treatment.
By coincidence, the state of Virginia is now in the middle of a top-to-bottom review of all the state's mental health laws. One legacy of the Virginia Tech massacre may be the closing of the gun and mental health loopholes Sung Hui Jo fell through. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Blacksburg, Virginia.
And coming up next, a charter school in New York where no child is left behind. No Child Left Behind got a big boost from President Bush in the heart of Harlem today. His national school testing program is set to expire in September amid complaints there's too much testing and too little funding. So he made his pitch at a charter school that has once struggling students outscoring the best of the rest. Here's our national correspondent, Byron Pitts.
Education is my birthright.
They are young, gifted, and bright.
Education is the path to freedom.
This morning, President Bush heard their pledge and saw their passion. Housed in one of New York City's toughest neighborhoods, 7th graders at Harlem Village Academy Charter School earned one of New York State's highest math scores, 95.7. Children who just a few years ago were failing.
One of the students was Kevin Smith. His mother says that when Kevin came to the Harlem Village Academy in 2003, he struggled, and now she says he can do it with his eyes closed. That's a math student right there.
Kevin's goal, become a lawyer tomorrow, dress like one today.
If I want to become a lawyer, I have to wear suits. I can't go into a courtroom wearing some jeans and a shirt. So I think it's really helping us.
So if you want to be the man, you got to dress like the man.
Yes.
So I actually think that all the kids, regardless of the fact that they might be born into poverty, have absolutely the same potential as any other child.
Deborah Kinney is the founder of Harlem Village Academy, where kids go to school 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes on Saturday. She brought a business plan to the classroom.
Use business principles of accountability and autonomy and holding people accountable for results. So, for example, I could show you by student, by standard, who needs extra help and who doesn't on any given day.
It's one in a variety of techniques used in charter schools in 40 states across the country. More than 1 million students in nearly 4,100 schools with mixed results. Still, parents like Lucy Myers believe in them.
And ever since he started, it's been like up, 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 up.
I recommit myself to our community.
The debate over charter schools versus public schools is a long one, but not here. Not for these children who no longer simply have dreams. They have direction. Byron Pitts, CBS News, Harlem.
And coming up next, how to read your dog's body language. It's all in the tail. Well, this would make any parent wince. A young boy was on the sidelines of a football game for Family Day when the game came to him. It happened at Colorado State. A receiver had just caught a touchdown pass when he accidentally nailed 4-year-old Caden Thomas. Caden needed 30 stitches in his forehead. He's doing much better, though he did admit, quote, it kind of hurted. Finally tonight, a breakthrough in communications between man and dog. If you can't make heads or tails of what your dog is trying to tell you, here's a hint. Forget the head, keep your eye on the tail. Here's our canine correspondent, Richard Schlesinger.
If you're a dog lover, how many times have you asked yourself, what is he or she thinking about anyway?
If he's afraid, his tail goes down.
We fuss over our dogs, worry about them.
You look so handsome.
Spend more than $38 billion to keep them happy and healthy. But how do we really know how they feel?
See the wag? See that? There it is.
Well, it turns out the tail tells the story, and a wagging tail doesn't always equal a happy dog. Italian researchers videotaped how 30 dogs wag their tails after seeing different things.
They measured the angle of the wag and concluded if the tail favors the dog's left side, he's not so pleased about what he sees. The right side, he's happy.
When the dog is wagging the tail, the dog is saying a lot.
Dr. Steven Zawistowski is an expert in animal behavior, and he's excited by the new study. We met him at an aptly named doggy daycare facility in New York.
The nature of that wag, by parsing it very carefully, we're seeing that it's signaling some elements of intention or how the dog is interpreting the situation.
I've never thought Sally had much trouble at all telling me how she feels. She's usually pretty happy, but that's just my opinion. It's not very scientific.
They're taking a protractor, looking at deflection of the tail. Most of us are not going to be able to be that careful in reading something like that.
Most of us will rely on more old-fashioned ways of reading our dogs' minds, tried and true, although not particularly scientific.
Usually when there's food around, I know what's on her mind.
Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Attention all stations concerned.